In my Lie of Food series, I addressed the top 10 killers. And I said with the top 10 killers, number 1 is heart disease, number 2 is cancer, number 3 is stroke. I said in the 7 of the top 10 killers, they don't just happen to you. You don't just contract. One day you don't have heart disease, next day you have it. You have these things that cause it, and they're called risk factors. And I said in that podcast that 7 of the top 10 killers, the number 1 risk factor was obesity. And so we're going to talk about one of those today, a very popular one, and one that actually could almost be off the list, strictly using fitness to combat strokes today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness and the host of the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today, talking about, actually, it's kind of in the line with some other podcasts that I've done. And I've kind of gotten on this theme because, 35% of our clientele is over the age of 65. Our youngest client that we ever worked with is 3 currently. Our range is 7 to 93. We've had him as old as 97. We've had him as young as 3. Our median age is 39. We work with all ages, but 35% of our clientele is over the age of 65. So we do a lot of true senior fitness. I talked about that in the last podcast. But one of the things I've talked about before is I've talked about the top 10 killers. I've talked about the fact that the top 10 killers, except for accidents, they aren't something you catch. Heart disease is the number 1 killer. You don't catch heart disease. You don't just, one day you don't have it, and next day you catch heart disease. Cancer is something that we develop. We're looking for the cause of cancer. Cancer is not something that, I'm sure there are things that you can do that can immediately cause cancer, but typically it's developed. Lung function problems, kidney disease, liver disease. These are things you don't catch them, you develop them. And what causes those things, those top 10 killers, are what we really are looking at. We're looking at changing. We're looking at finding what they are, first and foremost. They call those risk factors. The number 1 risk factor for 7 of the top 10 killers is obesity. And I've talked about that quite often. And I've done some podcasts on this. I kind of got off of it. I want to get back to it and address one of those top 10 killers and how fitness can keep you from experiencing this top 10 killer. In fact, I argue that if we were to look at this right, forget about the lipid hypothesis, address obesity, not BMI, throw that away, never use it, ridiculous. We start looking at body fat. We start looking at actual body composition. That we can prevent. We can actually knock these top 10 killers. They wouldn't even been in the top 10 anymore. And today we're talking about a stroke, which I know a lot of people think when I get on the podcast, I'm about to have one because I show anger, as my good friend Brian O'Donnell and my Vistage group tells me. It's Garrett's passion. Let's go with passion. That sounds a lot better. But it is a passion of mine, and that is combating all these lies that are causing these problems. We could knock strokes right out of the top 10. Strokes they're often referred to as brain attacks. They can be devastating, not only to the individual affected, but also family members, communities as well. According to the World Health Organization, strokes are the second leading cause of death globally. Now in America, I think they're in their third, but the second leading cause of death globally, and their impact is enormous. But here's the good news. Many strokes, I argue eventually we're going to find out that all of them are, but many strokes are preventable. They're preventable. The number 1 risk factor for strokes is obesity. That is the number 1 risk factor. Number 2, I believe, is stress. Something very interesting about that. Number 1 cause is obesity. What is obesity? Obesity technically is not a BMI. BMI is worthless. I'm going to say that a few thousand times. Don't waste your time with BMI. Don't waste your time with anybody preaching to you about BMI. Anybody using BMI is an idiot and does not know how to measure health. And if you know somebody that's done that, please tell them I said that. And if they need to reach out to me, 251-278-3343 or 251-341-0927. Call up that second number. Tell Erica that I called you a liar and you want to talk to me. Be more than glad to book the time. Because if you're using BMI to measure health whatsoever, you are an idiot. It is a worthless, made-up number by an astronomer in the 1700s. It does not tell you anything about health. Doesn't even tell you anything remotely about health. Doesn't even tell you anything that people say, well, this is the best thing we have available. No, you've got something better. Body fat. The technical definition of obesity, sorry to go off on BMI so much, is a male who has 26% body fat or more and a female who has 30% body fat or more. That is technically obese. And the neat thing about that, not neat, but unique thing about that nobody thinks of. They can think of obese. Okay, giant. Got to be big first. No, you don't. No, you do not. You can have what's known as sarcopenic obesity. It's not a special type of obesity. It's the same obesity. It's just the fact that your body fat percentage is 26% for a male or 30% for a female. That is, you can weigh 100 pounds. And if you're a male and 26 of those pounds is fat, you are obese. You're obese as much as somebody that's 400 pounds. You're as obese as they are. Don't try to make yourself feel better. Female, 30%, 30 pounds, you're 100 pounds, you weigh 100 pounds, 30 pounds are fat, you are obese. And that obesity has the same propensity that somebody that's 400 pounds has the same propensity for you to get a stroke. And what I was talking about at the very beginning of this, I said obesity is number one cause. I believe stress is number two. The unique tie between those two is, remember what causes obesity, especially when it comes to nutrition. It's not a type of food, never has been a type of food. Idiots are the only ones that tell you that. Anybody telling you it's a type of food causing it is a flat-out idiot. Would love to debate them on any platform, as long as they don't have 100% control of the microphone. Love to debate any idiot on that fact that a type of food is causing it. Amounts cause it. Amounts of foods cause it. We overeat. Why do we overeat? One reason only. You've heard me talk about this before. The only reason we overeat is because of craving. Period. End of story. Cravings are in the brain. They're not in the body. If it were up to the body, I'd probably be out of a job, but we'd be a lot more healthier. Cravings are in the brain. Only one reason why we overeat, which is cravings. Only two reasons why we crave. And here's the connection I was telling a minute ago. Go back to what I was saying a minute ago. Number one cause for strokes, risk factor, obesity. Number two, risk factor, stress. Only reason why we overeat is cravings. There's only two reasons why we crave. Number one is lack of water. That's 40%. And number two is stress. There's your connection. 60% of the reason why we overeat is stress. When we overeat, we cause obesity. That's number one risk factor associated with the stroke. And number two risk factor happens to be something that causes obesity, which is stress. You see how these are tied? Guess what? One of the best ways to combat obesity: exercise, fitness. And if you're expending more calories than you're taking in, now if you're doing that to the detriment and causing sarcopenic obesity, we've got a problem. But if you're spending as many as you're taking in and you're not already obese, you're going to avoid a stroke. If you're spending more than you're taking in and you happen to be pushing that obesity level, you're going to be getting yourself in better shape and reducing your risk for stroke. Guess what? One of the best ways to address stress is exercise. What is stress? Simple. Stress is an actual thing that occurs in your body. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not. Grew up thinking, the people that are affected by stress, they're just weak. No. People that deny they have stress probably have the most stress. Or say, I don't let stress bother me. They're probably the most stressed. Stress is fight or flight. We've been born with that. We've had fight or flight all our human existence. And when it was fight or flight, literally you're out as a hunter-gatherer back in Neanderthal times, and you see a wild animal that's a lion, tiger, or bear, and it's going to come attack you. Stress happens. What happens with stress? You have sphincters start to tighten up. Digestion shuts down. We don't need to digest anything right now. Your body starts trying to conserve all the energy it possibly can and pull it into your core, into your strongest area, because it knows you need to do something and you're going to need to react quick. You lose your peripheral vision. This is also why, wedding, a lot of times on your wedding day, you can't remember all your wedding day. That is good stress. You're actually stressed. And so memory function goes, peripheral vision goes. And you're focusing because all you need to worry about is what is in front of you, because you're about to fight this thing or you're going to run. You're going to expend energy somehow. And that is going to reduce your stress. Why do they say when you're stressed, go for a walk, fight or flight? You're actually going out and moving. You're reducing that pressure, reducing that level of stress. So exercise does that. So it reduces stress, which is the number two cause of strokes. It reduces stress, which is the number two cause of cravings, which causes obesity. So yet again, exercise can help you reduce strokes. Another way you can do it, obviously, is by expending those extra calories if you've built up too much body fat and help you lower that body fat, which gets you out of the obesity range. And I argue that if you actually were able to wipe out obesity, stroke wouldn't even be in the top 10. I argue that stroke wouldn't be in the top 10. I don't know if there's data out there, but it's really neat to see data, and there probably isn't because too many health professionals measure obesity wrong. But if they were actually post-mortem, were able to get people's body fat that died of a stroke, you may find that number one cause, as they know, number one cause is obesity. So if you reduce obesity, you probably eliminate strokes. Wouldn't that be neat? A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that obesity significantly increases the risk of stroke, especially ischemic strokes, which account for the majority of all stroke cases. Just want to let you know, there's plenty of data out there. I don't know if I have another study or not, but there's plenty of data out there saying that, hey, We can easily reduce strokes through exercise. And I think most of you know that, but I wanted to get into the nuts and bolts, into the weeds and details of how exercise can reduce strokes. And you're going to find, as I go through these top 10, with 7 of the top 10 killers, their number one risk factor is obesity. Removing that obesity, I'm going to tell you exactly how it affects removing that risk of whatever that killer is. And today we're talking about strokes. One key element, of course, is maintaining a proper routine, a fitness routine to avoid strokes. A recent study conducted by the American Heart Association showed that regular physical activity can reduce the risk of stroke by up to 30%. I argue it's a lot higher than that. Dr. Michael Lewis, a leading cardiologist, says that exercise is a powerful tool in preventing strokes. Engaging in physical activity can improve blood circulation, lower blood pressure, and reduce the risk of obesity, all of which are crucial in stroke prevention. How about that? How does exercise lower blood pressure? Now, you've heard that. I've talked about this before. Water cuts cravings. I told you exactly how water cuts cravings. How does exercise lower blood pressure? Easy. Blood pressure, think about it. You've got a small garden hose, and you turn the water on the garden hose, and let's say the gallons per hour, gallons per minute, however you measure the water coming out, the force of the water coming out, the amount of water coming out, it's the same. In both these scenarios, it's the same. We put, I'm making up these numbers, 200 gallons per hour through a hose that's this small. I got my hand real small, wrapped real tight if you're not seeing this on social media. And then you put the same amount of gallons per hour through a hose that has a diameter which is 2 or 3 times larger. Which one has the higher pressure on the walls of that hose? Well, it's the hose that's smaller. Pumping more gallons per hour, the same amount of gallons per hour through a smaller hose as you do through a bigger hose, the smaller hose is going to have more interior pressure, or in our blood vessels, we call that arterial pressure. So when you expand that vessel, same amount of blood flow can come through, same amount of water, blood flow as far as the body. If you expand that vessel, you actually lower the pressure, you lower the blood pressure. Well, how do you do that? When you get warmed up, you've talked about being warmed up. I'm going to warm up during exercise. I had so many people come in on a hot day and say, I don't need to warm up. I'm warm already. It has nothing to do with body temperature. It has to do with the fact of getting your circulation increased so that your capillaries, so that your veins, so that your arteries open up. They open up wider. And we do that by getting you moving. That's how exercise increases the size of those veins, capillaries, arteries, all your blood vessels. Increases the size of them, therefore it lowers your blood pressure. That's how exercise lowers blood pressure. Obviously, nutrition plays a part of this as far as stroke is concerned, mainly because nutrition plays a part of obesity. It's recommended by the American Heart Association, recommends at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic exercise every week, and also resistance training. It's funny that resistance training is thrown in as, you might want to also think about this. Too many times I'll have people talk to me and they'll ask me, I walk, is that good? They're not asking me if using a bipedal modality of moving your body across the land is good. They want to know, is that fitness program good enough? No, it's not. It's not. Is it good? Yeah. I've never said walking's bad. I don't know how a lot of people would say, stop walking, get in a wheelchair or something. Quit walking. Walking's good, but it's not an overall fitness program. And we're finding out now that, resistance training is probably far more important than cardiovascular training. By the way, I'm not trying to pit the two against each other. I'm just saying they are on an equal footing. Don't fool yourself, especially when you say, yeah, but you know what? My mother is older, so she needs to worry about cardio first. Nope. Importance is the same. Having both of them. And that can help you reduce stroke. I don't want to belabor the point. I'll beat this to death. But if you have any questions about this, dealing with this particular killer or any of the others, please contact me at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That, of course, is our website, and Personal Edge Fitness is our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter or X at TeamPE if you have any questions about this. Simple ways, folks. That's amazing to me. The human race has the ability to remove at least 7 of the top 10 killers off the top 10 killer list. If nothing else, severely reduce the numbers. We know this. We're not guessing at this. It's simple by understanding the right measurements and understanding the right amount of fitness nutrition that we need, and we already know the answers to them. Don't let these ridiculous lies about good food, bad food, or this exercise against that exercise keep you from doing what is commonly known. If we can help you, give us a call, because we love nothing more than helping you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.